I started writing for the Wood Green, Palmer's Green and Southgate Weekly Herald. Theatre reviews for productions at the theatre I was later to work in. They had a guy who did the reviews, but every play he saw he said was wonderful, and in Weekly, you know damn well, not every play was wonderful, let alone the performance. And so one bank holiday I went and sent a review in saying, I saw the show, your reviewer always says it's wonderful, this one was good, but they're not always, and they printed my review. And I was 14. Having read it, the guy who did their reviews chucked in his notice, and I had a phone call asking me if I would go to the Intimate Theatre, Palmer's Green, every Monday night to do a review. 14. And...
But free tickets?
Yeah, but, you know, sometimes they should have paid me to go and see it. Nevertheless, I carried on, and when it came to GCE exams and all the rest of it, we were asked, I think in French oral, what do you want to do when you leave school? And I just said, je voudrais être journaliste. And everyone thought I was going to be a journalist. Well, it was the only thing I knew how to say in French. And I didn't really see that, so I had to start writing for a paper called the South London Advertiser, which was in Brixton in those days. And I got tired of that, playing Deadline Midnight. There were only 4 of us to do 8 editions a week, and it usually meant I would go out on a Tuesday morning, buy the Tuesday edition of the South London Press, and we spend Wednesday rewriting it. It then went to Ruislip to be printed on the presses of the Weekly Press, which was owned by the same guy, and it fell to my lot on a Wednesday to go there and fill in the gaps which occurred because the copy was dispatched by parcel on the railway to West Ruislip, thrown off by the guard and picked up by the newspaper. Sadly, not every parcel was thrown off. And one day there was this big gap and someone said, look, here's a photo, use it. And so we did a quick caption, which got us into serious trouble because we said, happy, vivacious 21-year-old, let's call her Flora Gusset, twisted the night away with the Mayor of Lambeth. Unfortunately, we didn't know. And Flora had disabilities, which meant she couldn't twist with anyone. And one Christmas, because the compositors were not English and made up what they saw on the dummies, we used as a dummy an edition from the previous December. And sadly that year the Christmas issue came out with the previous year's dateline. So we didn't sell any of that. I thought that was not the life for me. And I went off to work in local government, in local library service, and eventually worked for a cinema chain. But up until I was 15 and ready to leave school, I was doing an awful lot of television. The connection was Pollock's Toy Theatres, which you know from Robert Louis Stevenson, a penny plain and tuppence coloured. I used to go to their museum, now in Scala Street, it was in Monmouth Street then, and help as a sort of Saturday boy. And I was seen by a woman who wanted me and 2 other lads to do an All Your Own with Hugh Weldon from White Ladies Studios in Bristol. I then did a Sunday special, and then a woman called Mary Plumley, who worked for Reader Fusion at the time, picked on me to do a few Tuesday rendezvous. Toys made from matchboxes, toy theatres, all sorts of things like that. And one week, the star guests were the Beatles. This was in the early 60s, 62, 63. And so I did that. And when it came to the GCSEs, I was lucky to get 1. But as the senior master said, we were lucky to see you at all. What you were doing, you were ready to leave school before your 5th year. Your school was tedious. you were already out of it, and that's it. Yes, well, I did run for a time out of my own pocket the Lyceum Theatre crew, and we always, when we started a new repertory season, we always had a flood of entrants because I was allowed by equity to give 2 new memberships. But in that first season, the new entrants were not allowed to act. They could only be ASMs, assistant stage managers, for those who don't know. Then before that, I'd managed Wyndham's in the West End for Donald Albury and did the royal visits when they came. I would have to hurtle out perhaps to the Criterion or the Piccadilly if one of them was expected there. And leave someone else at the Wyndham's. Yeah, those were, but they were different times, and this is what we mustn't lose sight of. When I was appointed house manager at Wyndham's, we still had Godspell. The top price was £2.50 for the best seat. That was in about 1975. God, it's 50 years ago, isn't it? The next play in was Celia Johnson in The Dame of Sark. That went up to £4. Then we had a transfer from the Royal Court, Teeth and Smiles. That went up to £4.50, and so on. So the gallery, which had been 25 pence for Godspell, was getting to be expensive, and I was working for a short while at the Fortune with that 2-hander, Woman in Black. And the price when I went by the Fortune the other day for a 2-hander was in excess of £40. We are losing sight of the fact that when I look back on my childhood, theatre was there to entertain. And when I was about 5, I had pneumonia, and my parents said, when you get better, we'll get a television. I didn't know what a television was. But anyway, we got better, I got better, and they went out and they got quite a large screen for the day, 12 inches, and it was made by Bush. Of course, my mother, innocent as ever, ran up and down the street inviting people in to see the coronation, telling everyone she had a 12-inch Bush. The house was more full than I've ever seen it. There's an old story about Cissy Williams, who was the Moss Empire's booking controller, and someone is supposed to have said to her one day, "So tell me, what's new for the circuit?" "Oh," she said, "something really good next week at Swansea." "Oh," she said, "yes, we're closing it, and if it's a success, we're going to bring it in throughout the whole circuit." And the Swansea Empire was the first to go.
And so many more have gone since.
Indeed, those were, yes, there were days of more poverty, more difficulty, but how much easier then for the purveyors of pictures and plays to sell dreams. And a friend of mine from those years, a guy called Alf Sparrow, whose grandfather had built and ran several theatres in the London suburbs, they had a cinema in Loughton called the Kinema, and it said, "For the price of a few pennies, you may enter our magic portals and forget the goings-on of the outside world." And we really need, perhaps, something to work to that effect now.
I even played Father Christmas in Loughton.
That town has much to be sorry for. So perhaps I'll look to just concentrating on Lewis in the future.
Right, right. And so you're not going to retire yet?
I don't think I can. The time may well come when I just want to sit and say, well, of course we did it differently in my day, but at the time, and now, the present, I'm too busy thinking of how different I can be for the future. Because you can't keep looking back. We have to develop, and as a town council, we in fact have very few powers more than a parish council. We must concentrate on benefiting the population of Lewis Town, not the whole bloody world. Lewis Town, that is who elects us. Let us look after them and not make such a fuss about trying to take care of the outside world as well. One knows one's limitations. I think we're coming to the time to part company and say goodbye, and nothing better perhaps to use than a couple of verses from A Fallen Star. I quoted 2 bits completely in the wrong place when we were out in the churchyard earlier, and it's very sad, and it was written by Albert Chevalier, who most people, if they remember the name at all, will remember his semi-sang, semi-spoken My Old Dutch. So it's very much of that period. And this was a man, a fallen star, an actor, gone, forgotten. And it starts, 30 years ago, I was a favourite at the Vic, a finished actor, not a cuff and collar shooting stick. I roused the house to laughter, or called forth the silent tear, and made enthusiastic gods vociferously cheer. Those were the days, the palmy days of histrionic art. Without a moment's notice, I'd go on for any part. I do not wish to gas, I merely state in self-defense. The denizens of Newcut thought my Hamlet was immense. 30 years ago, I can hear them shout, bravo, when after fighting armies, I could never show a scar. That time, alas, is gone, and the light that erstwhile shone was the light of a falling star. From patrons of the circle too, I had my meed of praise. The ladies all admired me in those happy halcyon days. My charm of manner, easy grace, and courtly old world air, heroic bursts of eloquence, or villain's dark despair. I thrilled my audience, thrilled them as they never had been thrilled, and filled the theatre nightly as it never had been filled. Right through the gamut of emotions I could range, from classic Julius Caesar to the idiot of the Grange. 30 years ago, I was someone in the show, and now I pass unrecognized in crowded street or bar. The firmament of fame holds no record of my name, the name of a fallen star.